students, welcome to your geography lesson Composition and Structure of Atmosphere, lesson 8, class 11. This entire chapter is divided into two parts, so we'll start up with the first part today. Before I come to the main content, let me brief you in a nutshell what all we'll be covering in this entire chapter. We'll start up with the introduction to the concepts, then importance of atmosphere, your composition of atmosphere, structure of atmosphere, and finally elements of weather and climate. Well, the question arises, what is atmosphere? In simple terms, you can simply say the envelope of air which covers the earth's surface is known as atmosphere, or the blanket of air which covers the earth is known as atmosphere. Well, on account of having a conducive atmosphere, our earth is marked as a unique planet because it holds life in it, and life is altogether an outcome of the conducive atmosphere with all life supportive gases present in it. Further, the atmosphere what the earth holds is a mixture of several gases, and all these gases just they encircle the earth, or say they encompasses the earth from all sides. So we can conclude that the air surrounding the earth is called atmosphere. Now this particular say domain of air, or say varied gases and other articles, is very important to us. Let's analyze or just discuss the importance of atmosphere for us. Atmosphere, in simple words, is the air which surrounds the earth, and it is a mixture of different gases. It contains life-giving gases like oxygen for humans and animals and carbon dioxide for plants. That's very true. We all take in oxygen, and while we confirm with the activity of respiration, and similarly animals too breathe in oxygen and they give out carbon dioxide. Similarly, this second gas, carbon dioxide, is important for plants to accomplish the task of photosynthesis, or you can simply say to fulfill the activity of food preparation in leaves. Third, it envelopes the earth all around and is held in its place by the gravity of the earth. It's very true that the earth's atmosphere is at its fixed location on account of the earth's gravity. Further, the atmosphere also helps in stopping the ultraviolet rays of the sun to enter into the earth's surface, because when we'll discuss the structure of the atmosphere, in the layer stratosphere there is the presence of a very important gas called ozone. This particular gas, ozone, holds the capacity to filter the UV radiations, and on account of this we are free from this harmful effect of the ultraviolet rays which are just passed by the solar insolations. So you can say it also protects, or it acts as a filter to us. Fine. Third, it also further it also protects us from the external space influences. That is, most of the meteors and meteoroids, they burn within different layers of the atmosphere on account of excessive friction. So because of that, we are also protected from the external space attacks. Otherwise the earth would have been in trouble, or we would be holding craters like as we see or observe on the surface of moon. Fine. For generally, this atmosphere, it extends up to about 1600 kilometers from the Earth's surface. However, 99% of the total mass of the atmosphere is just confined up to the height of 32 kilometers from the Earth's surface. Moving ahead, our Earth's atmosphere is composed of three main constituents. The constituents include, first, a combination of varied gases, water vapor, and dust particles. Now let's discuss with some of the gases which are present in our atmosphere. The atmosphere is a mixture of different type of gases. Nitrogen and oxygen are the two main gases in the atmosphere, and 99% of the atmosphere is made up of these two gases. So we can say the prominent gases which are present in our atmospheric composition: number one, nitrogen, followed by oxygen. There are other gases like argon, carbon dioxide, neon, helium, hydrogen, etc. They also constitute the remaining part of the atmosphere. The portion of gases, it goes on changing in the higher layers of the atmosphere in such a way that oxygen will be almost negligible, in negligible quantity at an height of 120 kilometers above the Earth's surface. You won't find the presence of oxygen. Similarly, carbon dioxide and water vapor is found only up to 90 kilometers from the surface of the Earth. Beyond that, you do not find the presence of these gases. So let us have a percentile description of these gases. Nitrogen just accounts for 78.08%. Oxygen, that is O2, accounts for 20.95% by volume. Argon 0.93% by volume. Carbon dioxide 0.036% by volume. Neon 0.002 by volume. Helium 0.0005 by volume. Krypton 0.001 by percentage by volume. Neon is 0.00009% by volume, and finally hydrogen with the 0.4 times 05 percentage by volume. Now in this pie diagram you can easily analyze the major or the lion's share is covered by nitrogen. It accounts for 78% by volume, and the next share is of oxygen, which is 20.9%. Other argon 0.90%, other gases 0.17%, and carbon dioxide is 0.03%. Now let us discuss these gases in detail. The first gas we were talking about was here, let's say, nitrogen. It is the most abundant gas in the atmospheric air. Plants and animals need nitrogen for their survival, but they cannot absorb it directly from the air. Bacteria that thrive in soil and the roots of some plants, basically called the legumes, all the pulses fall in this category. You can have a just view of the pictures which are shown in the slide. There is a process of nitrogen fixation, which generally helps in, say, absorbing the atmospheric nitrogen by these leguminous plants. That is, they absorb free nitrogen and convert it into nitrates, and that is why farmers go for cultivating pulses along with the main say cereals or the food grains, right? That's a natural way to maintain the soil fertility. And the another way of nitrogen fixation is atmospheric fixation, that you might have read in your previous classes, when you might have gone through the nitrogen cycle, right, in the atmosphere. So animals obtain this nitrogen when they eat plant. The other important gas is your carbon dioxide. This carbon dioxide is meteorologically a very important gas. It is transparent to the incoming solar radiation, that is insolation, but opaque to the outgoing terrestrial radiations. That is simply, it allows the incoming solar radiations, and the atmosphere does not allow the radiated heat of the earth to escape back, right? It observes a part of the terrestrial radiations and reflect back some part of it towards the earth surface. Second, carbon dioxide is largely responsible for the greenhouse effect. That is simply, say, in a nutshell, there's a gradual rise of earth's temperature. When the volume of other gases remain constant in the atmosphere, the volume of carbon dioxide has been rising in the past few decades, mainly due to the burning of fossil fuels. Right? Burning of fossil fuels, now that is simply, you can say, burning of coal and petrol, right, and natural gas. These are called as fossil fuels because their geological formation is on account of remnants of your plants and animals, right, and fossils are likely to be seen in sedimentary rocks. This rising volume of carbon dioxide is the main reason for global warming, right? So the, as it is a greenhouse gas, it absorbs heat. So on account of this, its excessive concentration is resulting with an environmental problem which is commonly defined as your, you know, global warming. The effects of this global warming are far reaching. You might have seen melting of ice caps, right, then your early ripening of crops, number of biological disorders and environmental issues, right, may take in. Floodings, droughts, all these are some of the outcomes of this global warming. Here it is clear from the pictorial description that the incoming solar radiations are allowed to enter the earth's atmosphere, and on account of the excess of carbon, the radiated heat is not allowed to escape back. So gradually there is a shield and the temperature of the earth starts rising slowly and slowly, giving you the term greenhouse effect by carbon dioxide. Now next, the other important gas is your ozone. Ozone is a very important gas in the atmosphere, and it is found mainly between 10 to 50 kilometers above the earth's surface. It acts as a filter and absorbs the ultraviolet rays radiating from the sun and prevents them from reaching the surface of the earth. The amount of ozone gas in the atmosphere is very little and is limited to the ozone layer found in the second layer of the atmosphere, that is known as stratosphere, right? And because of excessive concentration of carbon, this ozone is being depleted, or on account of the use of chlorofluorocarbons, that is basically we call them as CFCs. They are depleting the ozone layer, and if this say UV screen or the UV filter which is naturally present in your atmosphere is, you know, diluted, or it is reduced by its content and shape, you will have tough consequences to face in the upcoming times. And this is very particular about this important gas in the atmosphere, that is ozone. Now the other constituent of the atmosphere is your water vapor. Water can just change into three states, that is solid, liquid and gaseous state. So the gaseous form of water is known as water vapor. Gaseous form of water present in the atmosphere is called water vapor. It is a source of all kind of precipitation. Now there are different ways and means we get precipitation on the surface of earth, right? Once the process of condensation is over, the next step is precipitation, and we find different type of precipitants which say are seen commonly on the surface of earth. The most common is rain, snow, hail, sleet, right? Some of the common form of precipitants. So you can say water vapor is a main source to all kind of precipitation, what we discussed or which I told you just now. The amount of water vapor decreases with altitude. It also decreases from equator towards the poles. So its say percentage or its amount, it goes on decreasing in terms of your altitude, that is height of a place above the sea level, and similarly your when you move away from equator towards the poles. It is maximum about in the atmosphere, could be just 4%, and it is generally seen in the say maximum concentration in the warm and wet regions of the world, basically in the equatorial region. Water vapor reaches the atmosphere through the process of evaporation and transpiration. Now, dear students, evaporation is simple. That is, when the open water bodies they are exposed to the solar heat, the water gets converted into gaseous state, which is commonly known as water vapor, and the process is known as evaporation. Then the term transpiration, it is from a botanical word, right? Transpiration is a very prominent activity or is a very important activity by which the plants release the excess water present in their body through leaves. They have got some tiny pores on the leaf blade, or you can say the leaf surface, commonly known as stomatas, right? So the excess water is released through them, and the activity of transpiration is accomplished, right? So that's why it is also said that vegetation also adds up to good amount of rainfall. Evaporation takes place in oceans, seas, rivers, ponds and lakes, while transpiration takes place from the plant, trees and living beings. Water vapor absorbs part of incoming solar radiation, that is insolation, from the sun and preserves the earth's radiated heat. It thus acts like a blanket, allowing the earth neither to become too cold nor too hot. That's very true. Now see, this particular component of your atmospheric air, water vapor, is just acting as a regulating device. First, it holds, the process of observing incoming solar insolations, and at the night time it does not allow the radiated heat of the earth to escape back. So it's clear that on account of the presence of water vapor in the atmospheric air, the earth is neither too hot nor too cold. It is in a moderate pace of temperature is maintained. Water vapor also continues to or contributes to the stability and stability of air, right? That is, its variation in the atmospheric air, it simply is marked as your humidity, right, may bring change in the say weather condition or the air condition, right? Stability and instability of the air. Moving on to the next component or say constituent to your atmospheric air is the dust particles. These dust particles are generally found in the lower layers of the atmosphere. These particles are found in the form of sand, smoke, soot, oceanic salt, ash and pollen grains. Now, if you talk for how do we get these dust particles in the atmosphere, all these dust particles, they are added by these varied sources. First in the desertic area, as the sandy soil is free of moisture, so it can be easily lifted by air, right, or other means. Then smoke and soot, which is produced by industries, oceanic salt in the coastal areas, ash on burning of forest or other articles. Then the pollen grains, right? When the flowering takes place or the flowering season, because pollination is one of the most important process for reproduction in plants, right? It is only when the activity of pollination is accomplished, production of fruits come into shape, right? So the pollen grains are the, say simply, the pollen dust is very light, and it also gets suspended in the air when the air blows, and it keeps on say the particles keep on suspending, or they are just floating in the air. But do not feel that these dust particles do not have any role to play in the atmosphere. Of course, these, say, minute dust particles, which have their origin from varied sources, also play a very important role in the atmosphere. The first, they help in the process of condensation of water vapor, right? Now, to accomplish the, or say to fulfill the task of condensation, the atmospheric water vapor, it certainly requires a base to condense upon. So these dust particles, they simply act as condensation nuclei, or we also call them as hygroscopic nuclei in the atmosphere to fulfill the activity of condensation. This water vapor further gets condensed in the form of droplets around these dust particles and finally leads to the formation of clouds and triggering the activity of precipitation in varied forms. So this is all what we have for today's lesson. We'll be continuing it in tomorrow's class with the topic, that is structure of the atmosphere. Thank you for giving me a patient listening. See you tomorrow. Till then, goodbye.